Solomon, according to,
Well,
he was the principal author. There's probably several.
okay, there's at least 3 authors of the Psalm, of the Proverbs. Okay, Solomon wrote quite a few. I got a little outline here. I want to tell you a little bit about it. The Proverbs are organized in the time of Hezekiah. They are 15 sonnets, it says, basically. And they're short poems. And they have kind of a special form. The Proverbs basically are practical wisdom. Practical wisdom, okay? They have contrast. They'll say something and then use and say the opposite. The good wife is wonderful.
Hey guys.
How are you doing?
Break it for a second, Jim.
There goes the
Book
neighborhood.
of we're in the book of Proverbs. All right,
Number 50.
in the book of Proverbs. Proverbs number 1.
Oh, all right.
Okay,
He's already started?
we're already started.
How are you doing?
All right,
How you
Marilyn.
doing yourself?
I'm great. Oh, I got it.
All right. The Proverbs are basically sayings of practical wisdom. Okay, how many authors are there of Proverbs? At least how many authors?
One Solomon.
Solomon, but there are at least 3 authors. At least 3 authors in the book of Proverbs. Okay?
Is Paul one of them?
What?
Paul is one of them?
No.
No.
Proverbs.
Well, Paul wrote a lot of
Solomon.
Bibles,
Solomon.
but you just said there's 3.
There's 3 authors in the Proverbs. Okay.
So that was my first choice was Solomon. You already took it.
Okay. Now let's go. Open up your book of Proverbs. Open up your book of Proverbs. Okay. These are practical thoughts of wisdom. Okay. Practical thoughts of wisdom. In the book of Proverbs, we have at least 3 authors. We have Solomon. We have Agar, and there's a woman. Who is the woman? Who is the woman?
I guess, Ruth.
Huh? No, no. Who is the woman that wrote a proverb? Many times people and preachers quote it all the time, but they don't say who wrote it. They presume that Solomon wrote it, but Solomon didn't write it. All right? Well, we'll get there in a few minutes. There is one proverb that's written by a woman, okay? Okay, now,
Jim, was this part of
and 1 in verse 1, Proverbs 1 in verse 1. The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. All right? And this is verse number 1, okay? To discern the sayings of understanding, okay? To discern and understand. Now as you go on down in verse number 8, it says, "Hear, my son, your father's instruction. Do not forsake your mother's teaching. Indeed, they are a graceful wreath about your head." Now let's keep going on as we go on down. Looking through we're going to try to cover the whole book of Proverbs today. Okay? Now as you go on down, we have in verse number 20, he said, wisdom warns. Okay, wisdom warns. And then it says in the 2nd Proverb, chapter 2, it says, the pursuit of wisdom brings security. All right, the pursuit of wisdom brings security. And then in number 3, it says the rewards of wisdom are rubies. Let's go over to number 7 then. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. Number 7. Number 8, it will be healing to your body and refreshment to your bones. Number 9, honor the Lord from your wealth. What does that mean?
Give you money?
Give. All right, give. All right, and from the first and all of your produce. So your barns will be filled with plenty. And verse number 11 it says, my son, do not reject the discipline of the Lord. You know when the Lord whips you when you're doing something wrong, you know you're doing something wrong, and the Lord corrects you? Don't don't reject it. Listen to the Lord. He's got something He's telling you. And the Lord are loath His reproof. For whom the Lord loves, He reproves. Now, do we have this in the New Testament? Where is this quoted in the New Testament? You'll find these Proverbs are quoted all over.
Say it again, Jim, that one part.
All right. My son, do not reject the discipline of the Lord, or loathe His reproof, for whom the Lord loves, He reproves. Even as a father, so the son whom He delights.
It's in Hebrew.
Hebrews, the 12th chapter, verses 5 and 6. All right, see, there we go. Thank you, Sister Anthony. All right, and chapter number 4, a father's instruction. All right, and 4 and verse 16 talk about the wicked. The Bible, you know, the Bible has a lot to say about the wicked, and the final abode of the wicked, doesn't it? All right. It says in verse 16, they cannot sleep unless they do evil. Last Wednesday night I taught a class on all the evil deeds of the wicked ones, the reprobates. Yeah. They cannot sleep unless they do evil. They are robbed of sleep unless they make someone stumble. Staying up all night long planning evil.
It's like that one guy, your stepdad.
That's right. Sounded like my stepdad, doesn't it? They eat the bread of wickedness, that they drink the wine of violence. The way of the wicked is like darkness. All right. Number 5, the pitfalls of immorality. The pitfalls of immorality. Okay? It says, let your fountain be blessed, rejoice in the wife of your youth as a loving hind and a graceful doe. Let her breast satisfy you all days and be exhilarated always with her love. All right? The one you love. Your child love. All right? And then verse 22, it says, why should you, my son, be exhilarated with an adulteress? An adulterous woman. Forget it. Or embrace the bosom of a foreigner. His own iniquities, in verse 22, will capture the wicked, and he will be held with the cords of sin. Does sin sometimes work you over? Like always, doesn't it? How many, in your own, you don't have to put your hands up, how many has the Lord saved? How many has the Lord saved you? How many have you been saved? Have you asked the Lord to forgive you and save your soul?
I have.
Sometimes we have to ask the Lord to save us from ourselves, don't we?
Yeah, good joke, huh?
That's right. Sometimes we have to ask the Lord to save us from ourselves. Now, how many of you have been saved from yourself?
I'm still working on it, Jim.
Well, we're still working on it. I tell you, that's a constant battle, isn't it? All right. All right. Parental counsel. Number 6. He talks about don't becoming a pledge, don't co-sign for people. You've got nothing but problems when you co-sign for people. It makes enemies. Lots of problems. In verse number 16, it says 6 things which the Lord hates, 7 which are abomination to Him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that run rapidly to do evil, false witness who utters lies. All right, number 7. Number 7. Proverb number 7. The wiles of the harlot.
This one's perfection.
The wiles of the harlot. All right. There are women in the world that constantly use their attraction and their beauty to absolutely destroy people's lives. Just one after another. We've seen like this. We have a term for them, don't we? That was married to a king of Israel. Jezebel. The ways of Jezebel. All right, it talks about all this. He said, boy, keep yourself from the adulteress, wanton women. All right, and then chapter number 8. Does not wisdom call and understanding lift up her voice? The accommodation of wisdom. Get wisdom. All right, now we have a wisdom's invitation in chapter number 9. Number 10, the contrast of righteousness and wicked. Of righteous and the wicked. And the contrast of the upright and the wicked in number 11. And we're kind of hurrying along here, but we're going to slow down in just a few minutes and look at some things because it's very, very powerful messages. Good to have you here with us, young lady. Contrast the upright and the wicked. Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge. Have you ever tried to discipline your child and I don't hear it? Idiot. Have you ever heard that?
No, usually not.
Oh.
Too scared.
Okay, well, I mean, but you know what? A wife is supposed to instruct a husband is supposed to instruct his wife. How many wives listen?
None.
How many husbands listen to their wife?
That's why they make zero, Jim. So they can have that number.
Zero?
No, there's some out there. I bet
All
you
right.
asked me. She did.
Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof is stupid. You should never reprove your wife just because you're mad at her. But sometimes married people need to reprove each other just a little bit. In love. In love. You ever get reproved by your husband?
Oh, yeah.
Brother Bill? We were talking about that earlier
I
today.
keep my mouth shut.
Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof is stupid. All right. Number 4, an excellent wife is the crown of her husband, but she who shames him is rottenness to his soul.
Who wrote this, Jim? Because I'm getting
This is getting better, isn't it? All
What
right.
verse is that, Brother Phillips?
What?
What verse?
Okay. Proverbs 12.
Oh,
All right, we're jumping around just a little bit. We're
Okay.
looking at some of these things. An excellent wife is the crown of her husband, but she who shames him is rottenness to his bones. She who destroys his character is rotten. Okay? The thoughts of the righteous are just, but the counsel of the wicked are deceitful. The words of the wicked wait for blood, but the mouth of the upright will deliver them. And chapter number 13, contrast of the upright and the wicked again. The wise son accepts his father's discipline. Verse 14, contrast of the upright and the wicked again. 14 and verse 17, a quick-tempered man acts foolishly, doesn't he? These are all practical wisdom now. A quick-tempered man acts foolishly. A man of evil devices is hated by all in here. I don't know why in the world. They got a guy, you heard of Donald Trump. That guy is a rascal.
Yeah, I know.
He's a rascal.
He really is.
He's a no good. He's rich, but he's a no good. And how he gets what he has, he steps on people. And they put him on television. There was a show that he had here a while back. I never watched it or anything, but I heard people talk about it.
The
where
Apprentice.
86, the Apprentice, where he fired people. Who's he going to fire and be mean and do evil things to? The Bible says don't delight in this. Last Wednesday night we were talking about the Bible. God hates evil. He hates evil. In the book of Romans, the Lord says he hates evil. Marilyn had a grandfather. He said, I don't like that guy and I don't like anybody that likes him. Now that's what God says about evil. I don't like him and I don't like anybody that approves of it.
That's his feminine side coming out.
He who despises his neighbor's sin. But happy is he who is gracious to the poor. Isn't this some of the things that Jesus was teaching in the New Testament? Number 15, the contrast of the upright and the wicked again. A gentle answer turns away wrath. So many times, doesn't it? There was Dale Carnegie wrote a thing, How to Win Friends and Influence People, so many years ago. How to success. And you know what? A lot of that book was based upon the Proverbs of Solomon. Did you know that? A gentle answer, a soft answer turns away wrath, but harsh words stirs up anger. The tongue of the wise makes knowledge acceptable. Listen to that now. The tongue of the wise makes knowledge accessible. When a wise man stands up, he will make knowledge to where you can understand it. There was a general among the Apaches. The Apaches had a lot of respect for him. His name was George Crook. They called him Natan Lupon, the Gray Wolf. You know that when he finally went when the President of the United States and the War Department sent him into Mexico, down into Arizona, which was part, on the border of Mexico and everything, he went out there and he took his men out. He didn't say anything to anybody. He was very quiet. He didn't even wear a general's uniform. He had no use for pomp and circumstance at all, period. American history says he was the greatest warrior in the American history of any general there was. He spoke eye to eye with all of his men, the lowest private to his lieutenants, his sergeant majors, whatever, captains. He spoke to them as equals. When he spoke to them, he expected them to obey. That was it. He didn't ever ask them to do anything that he didn't do. And he took off one time. He went in there, never said anything to anybody, looked around, he hunted through the country, he would go out. You know what? He would go out and go hunting and provide all the food, all the meat for all of his troops. He would hunt. He would track the animals. He would do all the stuff. He would see the lay of the land. He would understand the Indians. He would understand the people. All of a sudden, he just got all his men together and he said, we're going to go. He got all his men out there and all his scouts together and he went, and they went for, they say, 875 miles. They went over every bit of that country. One of the old Apache scouts there, he got John Gregory Burke. He got him to the side and he says, what's he up to? Nobody in the army does anything without orders. He's our leader. We're just following him. That's all. They don't know where they were going, what they were doing. They were going out, and they went across that country, just zigzagging across that country. 875 miles. They learned every creek, every stream, every grass, every animal that was living in there, where the water was, where the feed for their animals were, and everything else. And then he went back. But what did Crook do? He wanted to find out what his men were made out of, who he could trust. Never said a word. They were just going. He'd get up, he would be ready every morning, and he would lead his troops out there. He would provide the game for them. He would feed his troops everything. He was doing it. Never asked his men to do anything that he didn't do. When he got back to the fort, he knew who he could trust. He knew the land and everything, where all the campaigns would go, where he needed to go. He had an idea of all of it. Wisdom. That was a wise man. And he did many of the things here that it is. A gentle answer turns away wrath. There's another man like that up here, J.J. Lopez, up here on the Fort Tejon. He spoke to all the men on common ground. When Joaquin Marietta, Zorro's men, after the game, Zorro's game broke up, he hired a whole bunch of them to keep them out of trouble. 15 of them went to work up on the home ranch. And they said he never raised his voice. Crook never raised his voice, hardly above a whisper. But when he spoke, you better listen. Same thing with J.J. Lopez. One of his men got mad at him and hollered at him one day, and he just walked off. A few days later, he came back later on, and boy, he gave him the Bible order of being in subjection. Told him all, by himself. Between him and him, that's all. 15, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but harsh words stirs up anger. The tongue of wise makes knowledge accessible, but the mouth of fools spouts folly. The eyes of the Lord never place, watching evil and watching good. Number 11, Sheol and Abaddon lie open before the Lord. How much more the hearts of all men. God looks in the hearts of all men, what you're doing. 16, the contrast of the upright and the wicked again. Here we have contrasted the good and the bad among mankind. Number 17, the contrast of the upright and the wicked again. Better is a dry morsel in the quietness. Sister Abdino, you know what I'm talking about. Better is the lowest base food out someplace in a hideout than to be trying to eat a big banquet in a fine dining room with a quarreling rebelling, railing wife.
Jim, what chapter are you on again?
I'm on number 17.
You better photocopy that one.
You know, I'm listening to them.
All right.
You better keep reading that one over, bud.
A servant who acts wisely will rule over a son who acts shamefully, and will share in the inheritance among his brothers. A refining pot is for silver, and a furnace for gold, and the Lord tests the hearts of everyone. Number 18, the contrast of the upright and the wicked again. Number 19, on life and contact. It says better, 19 and verse 1, better is a poor man who walks in integrity than he who is perverse in speech and is a fool. All right? Better is a poor man who walks in integrity than he who is perverse in speech and is a fool. It's not good for a person to be without knowledge. It's not good for a person to be without knowledge. The foolishness of man subverts his way. His heart rages against the Lord. Wealth adds many friends, but a poor man is separated from his friend. Just think about money will gather you a lot of friends. But are they really friends? Are they really friends?
No.
All right. Now number 20.
Parasite.
Chapter number 20. On life and conduct. We're talking about booze now. Booze. Booze. Wine is a mocker, and strong drink is a brawler. I remember, Betty Jean, you know what I'm talking about here, don't we? We lived it. We're Sam Paul's grandchildren. And I mean to tell you what, I grew up in that, and Betty Jean grew up in it. My uncles and aunts, I loved them, but boy, when they got drunk, man, what? Oh, all hell broke loose. That's all I can say. They'd be beating each other up, stomping each other's guts out. They'd grab the rifle, the old rifle I got at home, and start shooting the flies off the walls in the house. I was dodging bullets from the time I was little, you know. I survived.
You should make a movie about you, Jim.
Now, am I telling the truth, Betty G? That's the absolute truth. Out there cutting, threatening to cut each other's throat and everything else, they're beating each other up, and then they'd all pass out, and then they'd wake up with DTs. I'm not kidding. You want to destroy your life, drink. That's a prescription for failure. I remember one time, one of my cousins, Jackie, I wasn't very old, I was only about, this was after my grandma got killed. And Grams was still there. She was still alive. And close to me, that's Sam Paul's daughter. Anyway, she heard about it. And I was over there, and she said, Jimmy, she said, bullets killed a lot of our family. A lot of our family died with bullets. But she says, more of our family was destroyed with booze and drinking than anything else. She said, Jimmy, don't drink. Jimmy, don't drink. It'll destroy your life. By the time I got to be 21 years old, I never wanted to drink anymore. I can guarantee you that much. I could see what it had done to my family. Boy, just read Shadow of an Indian Star and you'll find out what happened. That's the story of our family. Wine is a mocker, strong drink is a brawler. He who is intoxicated by it is not smart. He's not wise, he's not smart. The terror of a king is like the growling of a lion. He who provokes him to anger forfeits his life. When you're drunk, I'm going to tell you something, you don't have good sense. When you're intoxicated, you don't. When you're on drugs, you don't have good sense. You want to see some dumb people, you see them that are drugged up, wiped out. Go see what happens to them. See where they go.
You know, what's funny, Jim, a lot of them now, believe it or not, some of these people are functioning like they're out there in the world and they're functioning as high people when they're still on drugs and alcohol.
That's right.
But a lot of them, you're right.
We will have working alcoholic and working drug addicts. You do have.
It's called a functional alcoholic and a
Now,
functional
functional
drug
alcoholic
addict.
and functional drug addicts. Yeah, they function all right. But boy, everybody around them suffers.
Yep.
And you know what? They suffer the most.
They do.
Their children suffer, their wives suffer, their husbands suffer. but they suffer the most. You see this. Life and conduct. Number 22. Proverb number 22. Well, I'll go back to 21. A wise man scales the city of the mighty and brings down the stronghold in which they trust. Riches can be taken from you overnight. Be careful. He who guards his mouth and his tongue guards his soul from troubles. He who guards his mouth and his tongue guards his soul from troubles. Just shut up. One man said to me one time, he says, I was watching this guy and I thought he was pretty smart until he opened his mouth. He should have shut up. Stayed shut up.
You know, there's an old saying that a friend of mine had, it's better to keep your mouth shut and be thoughtful than open it and remove all doubt.
Yeah. That's from Proverbs, you know. That's basically what it is. Proverb 22, a good name is far more desired than great riches, and favor is better than silver and gold. The rich and the poor have a common bond. The Lord is the maker of them all. That's the leveler. I'm going to tell you where you get leveled real good. It's when you go to a funeral. The guy in the casket, he's going to go in the dirt just like everybody else with nothing. You're not going to take anything with you. Not going to take anything with you. You know, the Indian people were kind of unusual people. Of course, I'm Indian, you know, from all sides of my family. But you know, when an Indian died, Apache, a lot of the coat and everything else, they took and burned up everything that they had so nobody would be greedy about what was left. They had no trouble. They just burned it all up.
There's no fighting about whose it is.
No fight about it. Just burn it up. Go off. Just burn it up. Good name is more desired than riches. Favor is better than silver and gold. The rich and the poor have one common bond. The Lord is maker of them all. Number 23 on life and conduct. He who sets down to dine with a ruler. How many of you ever had dinner with the president?
Of what? The United States?
A vice president?
Of the United States?
Any country.
Oh, yeah.
Have you had dinner with the president or vice president of any country?
Not any country, no. Well, I was with Bush, but I didn't go because I had to pay.
One time I went down to my friend Phillips actually is his name. I was his hunting guide for many, many years. He invited me to dinner at his house. There was a vice president of Greece there, or the prime minister, and the admiral of the Navy, and all of these guys in a great big long fancy pheasant under glass, all this kind of fancy stuff. Sitting there, you just listen a lot. When you go into something like that, you just listen a lot. The Bible tells you to listen. That's what it tells you to do. It says, when you sit down and dine with the ruler, consider carefully what is before you. And put a knife to your throat. Listen to this now. Put a knife to your throat if you're a man of great appetite.
Man, I like to eat.
Huh? Yeah. But you don't want to look like a glutton in front of these people. Do not desire his delicacies, for it is deceptive food. Do not weary yourself to gain wealth. Cease from your consideration of it. When you set your eyes on it, it's gone. For wealth certainty makes itself wings, like an eagle that flies toward the heavens. Do not eat the bread of a selfish man, or desire his delicacies. For as he thinks within himself, so is he. So is he. Number 24, precepts and warnings. Do not be envious of evil men. Don't want to be like Donald Trump. Don't do that. God don't like it, he don't like you that like it. As simple as that. Nor to desire to be with them. For their minds devise violence, and their lips talk of trouble. By wisdom a house is built, by understanding it is established, and by knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant richness. A wise man is strong, and a man of knowledge increases power. Number 25. Number 25 tells you that Solomon's Proverbs were still being put down on paper, ink and pen, in Hezekiah's time. Remember good King Hezekiah, all right? And it is the glory of God to conceal a matter, but the glory of kings is to search out all matter. As the heavens for height and the earth for depth, so is the heart of kings unsearchable. Take away the dross and take away the silver, and there comes out a vessel for the silversmith, or the goldsmith. Take away the wicked from before the king, and his throne will be established. You need to clean house. I remember one time I was working for this place. I worked with this guy for several years, and I was one of the CEOs there. I was one of the upper echelon. And there were some people who came in there and undermined me. The customers, when they come in, they try to get me, we go into these meetings and they try to get me to learn how to lie to the customer. They wanted me to lie to the customer. I said, no. When a customer comes here, if they've got something to be done, if they needed to get it out, I tell them my word, they know that I'm going to get it done. They said they don't want to talk to anybody but you, though. I said, you know why they want to talk to me? Because I'm telling them the truth. You're lying to them. You're telling them you're going to get the job out just to get it here and there, tear it down, and they can't get the job finished. And then the people get mad. I said, I'll tell you what, nobody else can get it out for them any faster than we can, but I'm going to be honest with them. At least they'll trust me. And they would come in all over different places, from different ones. They said, we're Jim. We're Jim. I got something here I got to get done. I want to talk to Jim. I talk to him and look at him like that. And I said, I can't get to it today for you. When can you get to it? I said, I can't get it till tomorrow because we're covered completely up. I said, you can take it someplace else if you want to. And he said, no, I know you're telling me the truth. I'll leave it here. But Bill.
Jim, I once got fired because I wouldn't lie to a customer. And the guy when he hired me said the reason he was hiring me was if he heard that I was as long as the day is long. But then he wanted me to lie to a person, and I wouldn't do it, and he fired me.
People, when you're running a business, you want to get people you can trust, like General Crook. He went on that 875-mile trek for one thing, to find out which of his men he could trust, which of his scouts he could trust, what he could do, and who could obey orders and everything else. You want to do that. This is things in life. Don't bend your standards for other people. I finally told this guy, I said, you got thieves in this country, or in this company. I said, if you'll just make me the absolute administrator, top man for 30 days and leave and don't come back, don't take no phone calls, don't do anything, I'll straighten your business out. And I said, you make money, because I'd made the money, man, millions of dollars anyway. I was the highest paid person in the whole company. I made more money than the owner. But I was working harder than the owner too. A lot of 12 and 18-hour days there. And I was doing it for his best interest. I told him, and then when he wouldn't do that, I said, well, I quit. You can have it. You know what he did? In a month, he begged me to go back. They were thrashing him. All of the rats were. I told him, I said, I will fire the rats and get rid of the rats. And I said, you clean house and then you can be all right. You know what he did finally? Within 3 years, he had to fire all the rats, but he had to figure out who they were first. He finally got rid of them. I knew who they were then. And meanwhile, he lost a lot of money. Proverbs of Solomon. A soft tongue breaks the bone. Have you found honey? Eat only what you need, lest you have in excess and vomit it up. Let your foot rarely be in your neighbor's house, lest he become weary of you and hate you. Like a club or a sword or a sharp arrow is a man who bears false witness against his neighbor. Like a bad tooth on an unsteady foot is confidence in a faithless man in time of trouble. When you trust a man in time of trouble. I put up that website, on the website I put up Preparing for the Battlefield by Brother Dr. D.S. Madden. You know who that is, Sister Andy. And I told you the story about him being in the trench over there at Anzio Beach. He was there for 45 days at one time without any help, nothing. And he'd been in the war with this guy, Moxie Gumbo, for several years. Moxie Gumbo covered his back. He said, I never worried about what was behind me because he was looking the other way, and I covered him and he covered me. But one day in that ditch over there at Anzio Beach, he woke up and he said, he found they got some coffee. They were starving. When Brother Madden was that tall, wasn't he? And this broad, big man. About 385 pounds, 6'6" or 8", somewhere around there. Big man. When he left Anzio Beach, he weighed 145 pounds. He weighed 145 pounds.
The skeleton.
That's right. Starving to death. Absolutely starving to death down there. He said he had a lot of people go nuts on him at different times in the war, and they put him in straitjackets or whatever they had to do. They did what they did. But this one time, this Moxie Gumbo, which was a deadly man, he was a killer. He was a sniper, and he killed people. He loved to kill. He'd shoot a man's hand off, shoot his foot off, and then laugh. He'd just sit there and laugh as these people, as his friends would come and try to save him. He'd shoot another one, and he'd kill one, and he'd lay him out. And then one time, one soldier came up to surrender. They'd had a terrible fight, and this soldier was paralyzed, had been shot in his spine, and he came up and he said, Comrade was going to surrender. And Moxie Gumbo shot him right in the head with a 45. Murderous person. He was there in that ditch, and he made coffee, and he poured a cup of coffee for Moxie Gumbo, and he said, want some coffee? Moxie Gumbo, you want some coffee? He said he didn't say nothing. He just stayed looking the other way. He asked him again. He said, you want some coffee? In here on you. He didn't answer. He finally says, Moxie Gumbo, want to wear it or drink it? He said that time he turned around with a knife and tried to cut his throat. And he said, I knew right then I had to kill him. That's it. Pulled out his 45 and emptied it in him. He said it would take him 15 men to hold that man down. He was dangerous. I couldn't spare the men or their lives. You have to know who you can trust. Honor is not fitting for a fool, he said. Like snow in the summer and like rain in the harvest, so honor is not fitting for a fool. Number 26. Number 16 and number 17. The sluggard is wiser in his own eyes than 7 men who can give a discreet answer. A sluggard. You know what a sluggard is? Lazy bummer. I remember Louis, my grandpa Louis. I'm a day older than him. If he saw somebody didn't want to work, he said, lazy bummer. Lazy bummer. Number 27. Do not boast about tomorrow. How many of you know what you're going to do tomorrow? We can have plans, but I'm going to tell you something. Your heart may not be beating tomorrow. Do not boast about tomorrow, for he who knows what a day may bring forth. Let another praise you, and not your own mouth, a stranger, and not your own lips. Going back to number 26. This is kind of an unusual saying here. One that I remember when old Lyndon Johnson was president.
That's my relative.
Huh? That's your relative, I know. He picked up a dog by his ears one time. And boy, a lot of those people that were Christians, of course, they didn't like his stand on the blacks back there anyway. You know, I mean, at one time the Democrats were the conservatives and the Republicans were the liberals, and that was the time. All the Democrats back then were the Christians. And what changed it was I'm not sure that Lyndon Johnson wasn't a Republican plant, to tell you the truth, because he turned the nation around right then. Because that's when they started all the race riots and everything else, and he was on their side, and they gave him a chance to vote and everything like that. He turned the whole nation. The Democrats wanted to become a Republican. But one time when he picked up a dog by the ears, they said, "Look here!" In Proverbs 26 and verse, one who takes the dog by the ears, all right, is he who passes by and meddles in strife does not belong to him. They said that. What it's actually saying here is homosexuality. The dog in here is a homosexual male prostitute. That's what he is. If you go in the book of Revelation, you'll see it again.
Grab my dog by the
All
ear.
right.
It's almost
Number
like-
27. Warnings and instructions. Do not boast about tomorrow. We looked at that already. Number 28. Warnings and instructions. Number 28. And you've heard this one so many times. Jesus even quoted in the New Testament, "The wicked flee when no one is pursuing." They're paranoid because they are already bad and they know they deserve something. The wicked flee when no one is pursuing, but the righteous are bold as a lion. The transgressions of the land are many, and many are its princes. By the man of understanding and knowledge, so it will endure. A poor man who opposes the lowly is like a driving ring which leaves no food. Those who forsake the law and praise the wicked, but those who keep the law strive with them. Evil men do not understand justice. You go to jail, you go to a prison, and they're all innocent. Did you know that? I remember one time, a long time ago, Brother Matt, when we were gone overseas, we came back home, and about that time my ex-stepdad broke out of the Michigan prison in a helicopter. And up there in the, we had a little cafeteria thing there in the seminary. I looked over there and I looked on the table and there was a Newsweek magazine or something, and there was his picture on the cover of the book. I looked down there and Brother Madden looked at this book and he said, "I wonder who this bum is." I said, that's my ex-stepdad. He said, "Boy, you're a work of grace." I told him about Sam Paul and all the killings in my family and everything like that when we were traveling all the world together, and he said, "You're a work of grace, boy. By grace I am saved." I could have gone that way just like that. That's easy to go down that path, wasn't it, Betty Jean? How many went down that path? You know that I was the only one to ever graduate from high school on my side of the family.
And college too, Jim.
I didn't. The rest of them didn't even graduate from grade school. Most of them. Period. Too busy drinking and fooling around and carousing. Too much of it. Too much of it. The wicked flee when no one is pursuing, but the righteous are bold as a lion. Number 29, a man who hardens his neck after much reproof will suddenly be broken beyond remedy. He who keeps company with harlots wastes his money as well. Number 29 still. An angry man stirs up strife, and a hot-tempered man abounds in transgression. A man's pride will bring him low, and a humble spirit will obtain honor. He who is partnered with a thief, hates his own life. What's this, Sister Anthony?
Well, I said, you ain't kidding.
He who is partners with a thief hates his own life. He hears the oath, but tells nothing. The words of Agur. All right, here in chapter number 30, we find another guy, Agur. This is not Solomon's proverb, right? Let's look and see what Agur says and see how many people quoted Agur and contributed to Solomon. The words of Agur, the son of Jekiah, the oracle of the man, declares to Ithiel and Ucal. Every word of the God is tested. How many times have you heard that one? All right. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Have you heard that one? Feed me with the food that is my portion, lest I be full and deny thee, and to say, who is the Lord? Or lest I be in want and steal. These are very common, aren't they? And profane the name of God. Do not slander a slave to his master, lest he curse you and you be found guilty. There is a kind of man who curses his father and does not bless his mother. Verse number 14, there is a kind of man whose teeth are like swords, and his jaw like knives to devour the afflicted of the earth. The leech has 2 daughters. I remember one time, one of my sons was giving some advice to one of the relatives. And they were having an exterminator come over to their house and do extermination. And my son said to him, he says, I wonder if they got anything to get rid of leeches. Because they were plagued with the leeches. The leech has 2 daughters. Give and give. There are 3 things which you'll not be satisfied for that will not say enough. Sheol and the barren womb. The way of the eagle is in the sky. The way of the serpent is on a rock. The way of a ship is in the middle of the sea. And the way of a woman is with a maid. These are all things that this Agar said. All right? Now, this isn't Solomon's words. These are Agar's words. But I believe it was inspired of God to say these things. There is a way of an adulterous woman. She eats and wipes her mouth and says, have I done any wrong? These are common old sayings. Under 3 things the earth quakes. Under 4 it cannot bear. Under a slave when he becomes a king. Boy. Under a slave when he becomes a king. Brother Matt used to say some funny things. He said, some of these churches, he said, the worst churches I ever tried to pastor is when them whores got religion. They come in the house and boy, do they have standards. They think all the women were like them. And chew them up and spit them out. Under 3 things the earth quakes, and under 4 it cannot bear up. Under a slave when he becomes king, and a fool when he is satisfied with food, and an unloved woman when she gets a husband. And a maidservant when she supplants her mistress. A slave when she becomes greater than her mistress. When did that happen in the Bible? When did that happen in the Bible?
What are you asking now? Yeah.
All right. When a maidservant, when she supplants her mistress, when did that happen in the Bible? You remember?
Yeah.
Hagar.
Huh? Hagar. Hagar. Remember when all that trouble started? You know what's going over there in the Middle East today? Hagar.
Just
Hagar.
for the record, that's a woman that did that.
A woman even suggested it, didn't she?
Yeah.
Yep. All right.
Okay, we got to.
Sarah says, take my maid servant and take her for wife so she can raise up children for me. And now we have the Middle East war over that. That's what all the Middle East is about. Hagar and Sarah's children at war. All right. 4 things small on the earth that are exceedingly wise. Now this is, remember we said this before. The ants are strong folk. They prepare their food in the summer. The badgers are not a mighty folk, yet they make their houses in the rocks. The locusts have no king, yet all of them go out in ranks. The lizard you may grasp with your hands, yet is in kings' palaces. Spiders and lizards get to live in the palaces. They slip in and slip out. All right? There are 3 things which are stately, and then march, even 4 which are stately. The lion, which is the mighty among the beasts, and does not retreat before any, and the gamecock, and the male goat also. And king when his army is with him. These are all things. Number 31. Now, someone read 31 and verse 1 for me. This is the last chapter now. We're almost finished. 31 verse 1. Brother, Dr. John, are you there?
Yes, the words of King Lemuel, the utterance which his mother taught him.
All right. Whose words are these?
Then King Lemuel.
Lemuel.
Huh?
Lemuel. King Lemuel.
No. Whose
His
words?
mother's.
His mother's words. Who was the mother of King Lemuel? Who was the mother of King Lemuel? Who is the mother of Solomon?
Bathsheba.
Bathsheba. Now here are her words that she taught her son. All right. These are Bathsheba's words now. Many times we attribute this to Solomon. All the time on Mother's Day you hear Solomon's words, which are not Solomon's words. They are Bathsheba's words, okay? All right. What, O my son, and what, O my son, son of my womb, and what, O son of my vows, do not give your strength to women, or your ways to that which destroys kings. And down in verse number 5 says, or verse number 4, it is not for kings, O Lemuel, or you can put Solomon in there, it is not for kings to drink wine. Now, what happened to Solomon later on? He became an alcoholic and a drug addict. Did you know that? Yeah, he did. He experimented with everything. He experimented with all excesses. And here we have the last verse in this book, the last chapter. Oh, I talk about a fitting topping chapter, Brother Bill. To drink strong drink, lest they drink and forget what is decreed, and pervert the rights of the afflicted. Give strong drink to whom is perishing. Now it tells what alcohol is good for and drugs are good for. Somebody that's sick, somebody that's dying, give them sedation. Wine to him whose life is bitter. Let him drink and forget his poverty and remember his trouble no more. Open the mouth for the dumb and for the rights of all the unfortunate. Open the mouth and judge righteously and defend the rights of the afflicted. Now, number 10. Here we go to Mother's Day sermon. You've heard this one on Mother's Day so many times. The description of a worthy woman. Now, Bathsheba wrote this. Okay? This is what she taught her son. He wrote this. This is the kind of wife to look for, Brother Brad.
Okay.
All right, this is it. This is the one. An excellent wife, who can find? For her worth is far above any kind of jewels. Okay? The heart of her husband trusts in her. That's nice when you can trust your wife. And he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. She looks for wool and flax and works with her hands in delight. She is like a merchant ship. This is the kind of wife you're supposed to find, Bill, see? This is it. She brings her food from afar. She rises while it's still night and gives food to her whole household and portions to her maidens. And she considers a field and buys it from her earnings, and she plants a vineyard. She girds herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She senses that her gain is good, and her lamp does not go out at nighttime because she's got oil in the lamp. She stretches out her hands to the distaff and grasps the spindle. She extends her hand to the poor. She stretches out her hands to the needy, and she is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet, fine clothing. All her house is clothed in fine clothing. She's not afraid of the winter or the cold because they all have mufflers, and they all have gloves, and they all have shoes on their feet. And she makes coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Purple is royalty, isn't it? That was an expensive dye. Her husband is known in the gates. What does that mean? Her husband is known in the gates.
A judge.
He's a judge. He's one of the elders of the city. When he sits among the elders of the land, he's a judge. He's a lawyer in the gates. She makes linen garments and sells them, and supplies belts to the tradesmen, strength for dignity for her clothing, and she smiles at the future. She opens her mouth in wisdom. Boy. And the teaching of the kindness is on her tongue. She is an example to her children. One time, an old woman told me, she said, I'd rather see a sermon lived than to see hear 1,000 of them preached. To live a sermon. To live it. To live it. You know, your life can compel people to come to the Lord. Did you know that? Your life can. What you do. She looks well to the ways of her household, and she does not eat the bread of idleness. It said in one place, a little folding of the hands, a little dowsing, a little sleeping.
Poverty will strike you like a bandit.
Yeah, that's right. Laziness. Her children rise up and bless her. Her husband also, and he praises her, saying, many daughters have done nobly, but you excel them all. Now, that's men, that's the kind of women that you need to look for, and women, that's the kind of women you need to be. As simple as that. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is vain. Pretty is as pretty does. Pretty is as pretty does. I have to interject this because this is really important to me as a little boy growing up. That girl back over there on that back row there, that's my cousin. See? And she used to watch after me when I was little. And I thought that that was the neatest woman in this world. I thought she was absolutely the epitome of all young girls. The prettiest, the most. She even made me a pair of pants out of an old sheet one time. On a treadle sewing machine. You remember that, don't you, Ben? They didn't last long because the sheets wore out and they were all rotten, but I put them on, boy, with pride. And she taught me how to make one-eyed sailors. That's a little, she cut a piece of bread in it, cut a hole in a piece of bread and put an egg in there and cook it like that and turn it over. Boy, that was really neat. I saw all these things. Boy, I said, that's the kind of wife that a guy needs right there. That's the epitome. All these little things, she could just do anything. That was my cousin, boy. She was smart. Neat stuff. She was pretty. She was charming. But she was adept. And she ended up raising 5 children. Many daughters have done nobly, but you excel them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain. But a woman who fears the Lord shall be praised. A woman who fears the Lord. Why does a woman want to do all these things? Why does a woman want to do these? Why does a man want to be a real husband? Why does a man want to be a husband? Because God requires it of you. That's number one. You go in the New Testament, you find out what husbands are supposed to do and what wives are supposed to do. In the Old Testament, same story. You know who is the head of the home?
God.
The Bible said the man.
The man is the head of the home. That's just the way it is. Now, there are so many men that don't take that responsibility. If you have your children going astray in the home, you know whose problem it is? Whose fault it is? Whose fault is it when a child goes astray in the home? The daddy. Because he wasn't a good example to them. Whose responsibility is it to religiously educate the children in the home?
The mother.
The father. The mother does so many times, yes. Well,
Most of the time.
King Solomon's wife taught him, his mother taught him this, didn't she? She taught him this. But guess what kind of a man David was? He was always writing songs. He was one of the greatest songwriters in all history. Did you know that? David, one of the greatest songwriters in history. Now, he did some bad stuff. And it followed him, didn't it? But he was responsible for his home. Charm and deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord shall be praised. Give her the product of her hands, and let her work praise her in the gates. Beautiful. There's the book of Proverbs. I hope you enjoyed it today. I mean, we went through it quickly. But I think Proverbs is something that you can read every day. That's a book that you can read every day, and a book that you can carry with you throughout life. A book that you can carry, one that you can live up to daily. Try to live up to daily. the things that can make you successful in whatever you do. Well, I trusted this book when I was working out in the world. I believe this. When they take me into those CEO meetings and say, lie to those customers out there, and I said, man, you're cutting your own throat when you lie to the customer. Deceive them. They don't trust you. They will. They'll get mad and won't come back. And boy, that's what happened. When I left that company, the customers left too. You know what? Even the men that worked there, he said, if you did that to Jim, I don't want to be here because I don't trust you either. I mean, they had an exodus of customers and workers. They didn't want anything like that. They didn't trust them anymore. And it wasn't just me. It wasn't me. It was just, I was just following Proverbs. As simple as that, just following Proverbs. Well, thank you for your endurance of those hard seats today, and I hope we're going to study Ecclesiastes next week. Ecclesiastes. All right? Are you enjoying going through these books? We did Job in one day. We did Psalms in one day. We didn't get all the Psalms, but we got an idea of it. And also remember, with your Old and New Testament survey, go through that, and if you want to read ahead of time, you can read it. This is what I wrote when I was going to seminary in the Old and New Testament survey, okay?
I don't think I have that one.
Huh?
I don't think I have one.
Well, I think you had one. We might have some in the back. All right, let's have, Bill, you going to come up here?
I'm gonna do it.
All right. I think Bill's going to do it.
Oh, Bill, you doing it?
Bill's doing it. He's ready.
You want to do it?
He's ready.
We can both do it. You do the announcements and I'll do the prayer.
Servant Evangelism Project, for anybody interested. Men's Power Lunch.